So that's really interesting when you put all this, of course, in the context of what you were just discussing a little bit earlier of AstraZeneca and Pfizer-BioNTech mentioning these production problems and that they would not be able to supply all the doses that were negotiated with the EU, and the EU prompting the EU to potentially restrict some of the exports, talking about fair distribution and how Sanofi plays into this. So it's really interesting because you remember, as you just mentioned, that Sanofi was developing their own COVID-19 vaccine based on the known technology, based on their flu vaccine, but of course they met some problems in the phase 1, phase 2 trials, and saying that the immune response in the older patients, of course the one that needs protecting most because the one that developed the most virulent form of the disease, that was not good enough. So it delayed the rollout of their potential vaccine. They had to restart and adjust some of the dosing of their vaccine. So now this vaccine will not be available until the end of 2021. And also remember that Sanofi is also developing their own RNA vaccine, but also a few steps back as well. They're developing it with Translate Bio or US biotech. But this one, the trials, these phase 1, phase 2 trials won't start before the end of Q1 this year. So interesting here that Sanofi is stepping in to use some of their facilities, because of course they have big facilities to produce vaccines, to produce some of these Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. Again, remember that it's interesting from a French point of view. You'd say that the French government had mentioned a few weeks ago that they were asking Sanofi whether they could step in this way. And Germany had BioNTech having their own vaccine battle here, champion AstraZeneca in the UK, and France was a little bit left behind, especially with that Sanofi vaccine not coming through. So here, maybe it's a way for the French government and France to kind of show a good faith and show that they're taking part in this war effort against the pandemic. So, and remember again, you had Sanofi, you had this political battle last year when Paul Hudson, the CEO, said that the US would get the first doses of the vaccine because the US government had invested more in the research and development and the distribution of a potential vaccine. That created an uproar in Europe and in France in particular. President Macron met with the CEO of Sanofi and had a discussion over this, and then the CEO of Sanofi came back on these comments, but did say that for a long time the Europe had not invested enough in producing and researching for this kind of vaccine. So they put the acts together, these European countries, but maybe a little bit too late. And we've seen that these production and supply issues coming through in the past few days, creating sort of political storm here. So interesting to put all this into context, and the Sanofi move now mentioning that they will be helping to produce some of their competitors' vaccine to take part in this effort in the pandemic, guys.